right, guys, welcome back to the Good Stuff Podcast, where we talk about the good stuff going on in the community. My name's Derek Schwinn. I'm a real estate agent here in town, but I prefer to sell the community. I enjoy selling houses, too, so if you need that, I guess I can help you. But anyway, I guess I'll let you guys introduce yourselves so I don't butcher it.
I'm Todd Johnson, Treasurer for Marysville Schools.
Steve Cox, Co-Chair for Citizens for Schools.
And Erica Goodwin, Co-Chair for Citizens for Schools.
All right, so the purpose of this conversation is May 2nd, right, is the voting, is the school levy that's going to be on the ballot May 2nd. You've probably heard about that. I'm assuming if you're listening or watching this, you probably are aware of that. So is there an easy place to start on the context of the conversation for the viewers and listeners out there?
We'll defer to Todd.
Well, I guess in terms of context, I guess what we would be talking about, what's the need for the levy? Why are we on the levy now as opposed to a different time? And why are we looking at the millage amount that we are?
Sounds good.
There's a lot of different things you could talk about there, but really the main driver is our revenues, and our revenues have been relatively flat, and in the projections in the future, it's to pretty much remain flat and even seeing some decreases. Something we've talked a lot about in the past is tangible personal property tax, and that's still something that is still impacting us to this day. Without really getting into the weeds of that too much, and for those that don't know, tangible personal property tax was a tax on inventories for businesses in the community. So here in Marysville, having Honda and Scott's, that was a very significant revenue source for us. At one point, we were getting $10 million per year from that revenue source. The state wanted to make this. The state legislator wanted to make the state more business friendly, so they decided to get rid of that tax, which again impacted schools. They began phasing that out. So really, the big driver for the levy is that tangible personal property tax being phased out. Since in 2016, we were getting $5.6 million per year from that phased out reimbursement. End of next year, that will be completely gone, so a loss of $5.6 million per year.
Just for context, it always helps me to have most people. I remember when my father-in-law at Honda said, "Oh, it wasn't a big deal. The pension, it was $60 million." I thought, wait. So for context of people that aren't used to hearing $5 million,
right?
They think that's. I would think that's the whole budget if I didn't know. So what's the total budget, just for context?
The total budget for the school operating budget is around $60 million. So at one point, it was even a larger percentage. That phase-out reimbursement at one point, so that we're talking about almost 10% of the budget.
I was going to say, so it's a fair bit.
Yeah. So I guess the good and bad of that TPP, the good thing is that's what's been able to keep us off of the ballot for so long. We've been 15 years without a new money levy, and one of the main reasons for that is that tangible personal property tax. But the bad side of it is Marysville is the 5th largest tangible personal property tax revenue districts in the entire state of over 600 districts. So when that gets phased out, it hits us harder than almost any other district in the state.
Wow. That's pretty significant.
I would add on, if I could, to that. Like Todd said, it's been 15 years since there's been a new money levy passed in Marysville schools. So during that same time, the average district in Central Ohio has passed 11 mills in new levy money during that same time. So Marysville Schools has managed to go 15 years without having to add new money. Well, we're a growing district. We're adding kids every year. I mean, at some point, there does have to be additional funding. And so when people ask, well, why now? What is the reason? Well, I think school's done a great job of holding off for this long.
Mm-hmm. So I guess on the flip side of that, what's your answer to slow and steady wins the race, doing a little bit by little bit rather than all at the same time for those that are feeling that, my budget's going to go up so much?
Yeah, I mean, really that comes down to the way school funding is I guess, kind of created in law. You'll see most districts, most Central Ohio districts like the Olentangies or Dublins or Hilliards, they're on the ballot every 4 or 5 years. And the reason that is, state funding for the most part is, relatively flat for districts. You may see some increases, but it's not really going to, save the day. So that means that you're looking to local funding for increases to keep up with growth, to keep up with inflation, those kinds of things. So the way school funding is created in law, you pass a new levy. It brings in a nice chunk of new revenue. But with House Bill 920, what House Bill 920 basically means that new money levy is just going to create the same amount of money each and every year, because as property values go up, effective millage goes down, and the taxes stay about the same, revenue stays about the same. So what happens is you get a nice bump in revenue, your cash balance goes way up, and then you start spending into that, and then it just kind of levels off and then goes down. So you see peaks and valleys, and that's why you see most districts are on the ballot every 4 or 5 years. Bring that cash balance way up, then it comes right back down. Then you've got to come back for new money as your enrollment grows or those kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay, so I must have zoned out in previous talks of this, the state funding. Is there a level of adjustment in the distribution of funds coming from corporations like Honda and Scott's? I thought that was a part of it as well. I must have misunderstood it. Or just the tangible personal property tax going away. At one point, I heard a story about, not a story, but explanation that we got a lot of benefit, obviously, from the revenue and taxes from Honda and Scott's and those companies that are in our community. And there was an argument that was unfair, that we were the only ones reaping that benefit. It should be spread across the state and go to
that
other.
would have been the tangible personal property tax piece.
So that was just the method in which, okay. Well, you just said they did away with that tax. So
correct. So I guess maybe where you're going, the mechanism that was replaced, that there was a tax that replaced the tangible personal property tax, and that was was called the CAT tax. Now, the difference between the CAT tax and the tangible personal property values, just went into our valuation for Marysville Schools for all of our property values and TPP values, which means it benefited just us. Whereas CAT tax now, that's just a revenue that goes to the state. Okay. They turn around and can choose how to divvy that out, and it kind of goes into that whole state funding pool. But that doesn't come directly to us because, we've got Honda and Scott, so we get more. No, it doesn't work that way.
I see the distinction now. I didn't catch that kind of because it's here. It was here, so the rules kind of changed to be less location based and more
exactly.
Going into a different pot. Okay, that makes much more sense. I've explained it well. If you've heard me explain it that way, that was wrong. I didn't. I think also, as it was explained to me, I probably didn't hear the whole story. And when people refer to some of these things you're referring to, they just assume you know what they are. And cat tax, I don't know. It's not part of my business and my life. So, okay. So let's go over the good. So Steve, one of the things I've heard a lot at the events that I've been to that you guys have spoken at, one of the things I've consistently heard you say is your daughter had a great experience and you want to pass that along. So going over the good things that are going on, since this is the Good Stuff podcast, what are the good things that you guys are fighting for and you believe are Absolutely. One of the best things going on here?
I guess me personally, I have a very unique experience here in Marysville, being an alumni with the district. I used to teach for the district. I do feel that me as a parent now, I'm getting to see it in a whole different light. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't be more proud of the things that are happening in our school district, the opportunities that my kids have, the teachers that they have that are, a lot of them that I know and that I taught with myself that are good friends of mine. But this operating levy is for them ultimately. 90% of our operating funds go to paying those salaries for those amazing teachers that take care of our youth each and every day. And if we can't take care of them, they're not going to stick around, unfortunately. And we need them here in our community to take care of our future generations. So, I feel like my experience here in all of those capacities is what led me to sit here today. And that's why I'm fighting for this. That's why we're trying to get everybody else on board and see the amazing things that are happening, whether you're a parent or a grandparent or not. Maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're new to the community, but you came here for a reason. And because of our amazing school districts, I'm sure that's one of the reasons that you chose to be here. Ultimately, that's why we thrive in our community. It all starts with our school system. So, yeah.
And I would add, you've heard me talk. My daughter's a junior now, and she's at the early college high school. So you talk about good stuff. I think one of the things people don't understand, the early college high school, which is awesome, it's innovative. They do a really great job of teaching to
I'm kind of jealous it wasn't there when I was there. Not to
absolutely.
interrupt.
I mean, yeah, and my understanding is they're adding an aviation program next year. Which how cool is it? That's amazing. But so that didn't exist a few years ago. That entire thing was done through a state grant. So when I hear this narrative, they're not responsible with the money, they're wasting money, that's $15 million that was put into that school, got us a wonderful new innovative high school where we've got kids literally graduating high school with their associate's degree, going into from their college associate's degree before they ever enter the actual college, which is amazing in and of itself. And it's preparing kids for a diversity of careers. So that's an amazing good thing. But the other thing to me is, ever since my daughter's been in this school system, you're going to have teachers that kids gel with, teachers that they don't. I've never run into a teacher that wasn't motivated, didn't have the kids' best interests at heart, and who didn't work really hard to teach to that individual child. And that's what I've always been blown away about. Again, when I compare that to my own experience in school a long time ago, nothing like that. So It's a great school system. And to me, my daughter's a junior, so I could easily take that pass of, it's just one more year. I don't want my taxes to go up, and she's going to be out anyway. What do I care? Well, I do care about this community, and this community invested in my daughter, and so I think it's important that we invest in those kids that are coming up. So that's why I'm here.
Not to skip ahead, I was going to try to wait for a better transition point. Having good schools and great schools has the same effect on the quality of the community itself. And whether or not you agree with that or not, I think in our growing community, the culture, the community that we have, and the camaraderie, I think is important. One of the corny sayings I saw on Facebook somewhere that was a quote from a movie, something along the lines of, the mark of a good man is one who plants trees that the shade of which they'll never sit under. And, I think just that idea of, I'll add this in there. If you go back 12 generations, each of us have like 4,094 ancestors. And so when you just take that longevity of what it took to be here and the situation that we have in this day and age and the things that were done for us that we have no clue about and take for granted all the time, what are we doing today to pass that along? So I just wanted to kind of put that out there of, if you're grateful for what you have, especially being in this community, we owe it to the future generations and all of that. So not to steal your thunder, but just to really, I think, that longevity of, it's easy to say he's wearing the shirt, that's his platform, but whether or not you agree, you're here because of the people before you, and I think it's our duty to do better for the future generations and all that. So anyway,
if I could though, Eric and I, we don't work for the school, right? So
yes,
yeah, so it's important, I think, to put the dog we have in this fight is our kids and our community. That's the benefit we get from this. So Erica and my taxes are going to go up as well.
You don't get a secret checkbox on your taxes somewhere.
We don't get that benefit. Man. So ours are as well. I mean, we're citizens, and that's why it's Citizens for Schools. But we do care, and we care very deeply.
For sure. Todd, good stuff you want to comment on as a
The only thing I'll point out, because whenever somebody talks about the early college high school, I just have to point out, because I always go to the finances, and just some people don't understand the huge financial benefit that early college high school is to the community. So, because a lot of questions we get nowadays are with the growth we're seeing is when are we going to have to build a new school? So if you think about building new schools, you can build new elementaries, you can build new intermediate or middle schools, or you can build a new high school. Obviously, a high school is the most expensive building a school can build. It's anywhere from $60 to $70 million now to build a high school. With the $15 million grant that we got from the state, without using a single taxpayer dollar, we basically created a new high school so that we have two high schools now. So when it comes time to build new buildings, we're not looking at building a new high school, the most expensive building. So we've lessened the taxpayer burden significantly through that.
I never thought of it that way. Obviously, the older kids get, the more things they do, and the higher level they do it at. So the equipment and the facilities and all of that would go up as well. Interesting. Had a really good segue into the bad
I
section.
think you were getting ready to say just vote yes, right?
And the end
I
of
think
the
that was it.
conversation,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
I was going to try. But going to, not to get to scare tactics, but the bad side of things of what's not to threaten anybody, but what are we looking at on the downside of things?
In January, the board did approve a contingency plan. So, basically, because the question you always get, well, what happens if the levy fails? Okay, so that contingency plan kind of created a list of things that would have to happen if the levy failed. So, just kind of a high level what that list was. One is a hiring freeze. So if you think about it in terms of a growing school district, 100 new students per year, a hiring freeze is a cut in and of itself, because you have to be hiring, new teachers and new staff to keep up with that growth. So that's option was number one on the list. And really one of the biggest impacts of a hiring freeze is the programs that would potentially be impacted. So for example, our all-day, everyday kindergarten program, that's not a requirement by the state to do all day, every day. So if class sizes were to continue to grow, we would potentially have to take teachers out of that all-day, everyday kindergarten program, put them in other classrooms to keep the class sizes level, which means all-day, everyday kindergarten would be at risk. Same for like the teaming program at Bunsold. Next on the list was Tri-Academy, which is our alternative high school program. That program, due to some of the needs of those kids, it has a higher staff to pupil ratio, so that's why that's on the list. And then finally, there were going to be some cuts made to extracurriculars. Now, we're not cutting extracurriculars. We've seen the impact and the negative impact that has, but what we would do there is there would no longer be school-funded assistance. So, for example, we would still have a varsity basketball coach, we would still have a head band director, but there would no longer be school-funded assistants or a school-funded assistant band director, those kinds of things, as well as school-funded transportation for extracurriculars.
That's a big one.
So, nope, you call it. There'd be a hiring freeze, right? And so a hiring freeze basically means, what are we at, 100 new kids per year, so you're actually going down 4 without anybody leaving. So again, just hitting on some of the negatives that you hear in the community as well, that's fear-mongering. They can just cut administration. They're fat at the top, they can cut administration. I got to argue against that, because Eric and I, we both run businesses. And if we were both running our businesses on the same budget we had 15 years ago, which is what Marysville Schools is doing, there's no way for us to get fat and happy doing that. You've got to be lean to make that happen. So that idea that there's this massive amount of administrative cuts you could make that would make it so that either A, the levy's not needed, or B, this is what you do if it doesn't pass, it's just a false narrative. It doesn't hold weight when you just think about the realities of the way businesses operate, and therefore schools have to operate. They have to be within a budget as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Todd, legally, Marysville has to balance its budget, right?
Correct.
Which, again, that's why you have to make these cuts if it doesn't pass. They can't run a deficit. And so that's another part of the reality of this. So just hitting couple of those objections head on, if I may.
And just to speak a little bit more about the hiring freeze that Todd that they both touched on, there's a snowball effect that happens with that. So if we have teachers retiring, then we're going to have to start shifting now to replace those teachers within the buildings, and that could eliminate other programs that our kiddos are offered right now. All day, everyday kindergarten could have to go away if we lose just one teacher from that particular program. That could impact the community tremendously to lose that program alone. So, just not thinking about specifically what's on that contingency list, but what else could be impacted.
Well, the snowball effect.
Exactly.
Definitely is a thing. So I guess on that note, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say it doesn't pass. These things are enacted or come to be. Is there a waiting period to ask for more money? Is there, like, if that becomes the new scenario, kind of the worst case scenario, that happens, and then the snowball effect takes place, and then hopefully...
Yeah, so I mean, if the levy fails, ultimately it will be up to the school board what we do next. So only thing I can do here, is basically speculate. But November would be the next chance to pass an additional levy. So I mean, you would look at basically if the levy were to fail in May. Again, just my speculation is you would have to come back in November with the same amount, because if you can't just say, well,
Right.
we'll come back in November for less, because coming back for less means everything we just got rid of, we can't bring back.
Well, and I was just thinking the contingency plan of, let's go into place, and then school ends for the year and then starts back up, and now just sounds like more headache than it's worth.
Right.
And
then I guess even looking a little further ahead, if you look to an opportunity after November, meaning May of 2024, that pushes the collection period back an additional
until
year.
the money actually comes in.
And, it really just gets into simple math. What does that do to the 5-year forecast? Well, that's an entire year of no collection,
Delays it
which
back.
means that the levy ask, if it were to be in 2024, you'd be looking at a double-digit levy to be able to balance the budget.
All right, so from a solution-based side of things, other than Steve's quick to jump in and help my transition of just vote yes, which is obviously the easy answer. For those that just say, nope, do you have alternatives of solutions that might put people's minds at ease or give them a different perspective, or maybe the unrealistic nature of the solutions, or any perspective shifting concept?
I'll let them think about that real quick. They'll have a creative answer for you. But I guess I would just throw, again, I'm just the annoying guy here to give numbers. So I'll just give you a couple numbers, with somebody that says, maybe has that negative viewpoint. First off, I would say, we've done a very good job with what we've had for quite some time. We have an average expenditure per pupil that's $1,700 below the state average. So over the last 7 years, our per pupil expenditure has only increased by 7.7% total. So over 7 years, only 7.5% increase. You look at our state revenue per pupil, that's increased by 0.6% over the last 7 years. So you can just see where that tax burden is shifting, and it's not our doing. There's nothing we can do about it. That's the deal that we've been dealt,
Yep.
the hand that we've been dealt. But it just created the need for a shift in tax burden, and it's really our only option is local funding.
And so that reminded me, that was one other thing I wanted to bring up. I forget who said it. That I can't remember how you phrased it. The tax burden, how low we are for I think it was Central Ohio. Mm-hmm. And even if this passes, we're still at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me was one of the biggest, so if I want to compare to anywhere else that's doing, especially if it's a community that's doing well, that to me is about the only sales pitch you need.
Yeah, we've got a document that we put together that shows every school district in Central Ohio, and it just shows the tax rates. It's just facts and numbers, and it shows that Marysville Schools is the second lowest tax rate in all of Central Ohio. And if this levy were to pass, you could throw that millage number in there, and then we would just bump up to still being the sixth lowest
Out of
around 25 districts
so
for
still
Central Ohio. Yeah.
6 out of 7 isn't very much, but 6 out of 25.
Yeah, exactly.
Builds the context.
And the other thing that our superintendent always wants to make sure that I highlight, because I always just talk numbers, but it's really about academic performance. So the numbers don't mean anything if our
there's not
kids aren't
success, yeah.
success. So our performance index scores puts us at the top 20% of all school districts in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
Well, and let me pile on with some facts.
Let's go.
So, one thing Todd talks about a lot, so by law, every school district has to collect 20 mills in taxes. That's by law. That is the floor. So the very least you can collect is 20 mills. Marysville right now collects 20.17, right? Mills. So we're at the bottom, folks, already. So we're already right at the edge of the lowest amount that can be collected. So again, for this district to do what it's done and perform as well as it has with those stats, that's amazing. But at some point, if you're going to keep this thing going and if you're going to continue to excel, you got to give some extra funding.
Mm-hmm. So just another quick thing. As the real estate guy, property values have gone up, so taxes have gone up, and one thing that a lot of people are unaware of is, 75% of taxes go to the school, or 50, or out of everything, but that doesn't proportionally go up, is what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
So yeah, so if you're looking at, I might get too far in the weeds here, so please stop me. But like, I think what you're talking about is if you look at the county auditor website,
yes,
and where do my taxes go, you're going to see that the majority of property taxes is going to go to the school. And again, that's by design with funding laws in the state of Ohio. You're going to see that for the county, they're funded by a sales tax. The city, they're funded by an income tax. The schools,
I'm glad you got the numbers, because that's where I'm getting lost is the numbers. So I'm glad you've got them to have them accurate. So thank you.
Yeah, and then again, like you said, I think again where I think you were talking about is that House Bill 920 effect, is that as property. If you look at on the county auditor website, you look at the effective millage that's just being charged, that number has gone down, and it went down significantly this year because of those property values going up. So property values went up, effective millage went down, so that you're not paying more on those voted mills. Now, this is where it gets into the weeds a lot, but there is one exception to that, and that's something called inside millage. So that's across the state. Every county has 10 inside mills. Those aren't voted mills. Those are just mills that are just, mandated. I guess, mandated in law. Thank you. So for us, we have 4.7 of those are allocated to the school. So the remainder is going to the city or the county or a township. So House Bill 920 doesn't apply to those inside mills. So if you look at your tax rates or your what my tax bill went up to this year, that's because of that inside millage. So there would still be an increase in taxes this year because of the property values because of inside mills.
That your property value, I believe it was your property value went up 26%, but your taxes only went up 5%. Correct. Just that, because I think most people I didn't really get that natural correlation in my head of like, oh man, a lot of money goes to schools and that's going to go up. And so I think for the naysayers out there, realizing that just because your property value went up 26% doesn't mean your taxes went up 26%. And so I think that's in this conversation of asking for more money, if people have the misconception of, well, I'm already putting that much more money into the schools. Well, your taxes didn't necessarily go up that much. But I'd love to pick your brain about all the weeds to get into, because that's, being able to understand where the taxes come from and go and all that is fascinating.
So, I mean, that all comes back to that House Bill 920, and that's the reason why, even though your property values went up 25%, your taxes did not go up 25%. Now, the only, again, there's always exceptions to the rule. So, if you happen to be somebody in the community that, well, your property values went up 35%, meaning you went up more than the average across the county, well, you're going to be impacted differently by those tax rates. Whereas there might be somebody where the average was 25, but your property only went up 15%. So you're not going to see nearly, the increase. So there's always exceptions to the rule, but.
Very good.
I'm going to attempt to be the voice of reason. Not giving the facts, but being somebody that's born and raised here, I've experienced this community when it was small town Marysville, that a lot of people, we're out there, we are talking to people, we're trying to hear those people with the oppositions, and we want to hear that information so that we can be more equipped to answer any questions or concerns. But we value those opinions at the same time, and I personally feel that. I feel that passion from those folks that don't like the growth and who are feeling the burden of all of this extra tax money that they're already paying, and the inflation. And we get it. We're all living this life together and experiencing and rolling with the punches as all of these hardships come along. And I think that the best thing that I want to say is that when those hardships come along, when times get tough, everybody looks for somebody to blame, right? I mean, that's just a natural reaction. And unfortunately, the schools right now are feeling that. People are wanting to blame the schools because they're asking for more money. But the reality is the schools are just reacting to life.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
To what's going on in our world. And so I guess our biggest message here is don't blame the schools. Let's, look at the whole big picture of what's going on in this world today. And again, not blame anybody for this. We are simply just trying to be reactive and roll with the punches here. We know that it's going to cost people more money.
Mm-hmm. But that's just how it goes.
That's how it goes, and unfortunately, we have to find a way for our kids. That's what it all comes down to is for our youth and making sure that they thrive and have the same opportunities that we all did. Growing up. So
sure. Well, and onward and upward. We don't want to backslide and go down. And
absolutely.
I think to add on to that and kind of wrap things up, unless you guys have anything else to go into. Apparently Steve does. Erica's saying Steve's best. No, just, as I'm one of those that like the small town. I stayed here for the small town feel, and I didn't go to a big city because I didn't want to, and I love it here because you can go to the big city very easily if you want to have that. So there's conversation about smart growth and these different things, and the growth is coming, and it's having these growing pains and all the things that are coming with it. But like I've heard a few people say, the culture and those of us that have been here, are here, however you want to say it, have the opportunity and I think responsibility to help, craft the narrative kind of, as you're saying, moving forward and not blaming and coming together and kind of like my corny quote earlier, the shade of trees we won't sit under and passing that on to the next generation. So I think my biggest 2 cents on the community as a whole is we've got to be in it together and have a common goal of moving forward together for a brighter future, or whatever you want to say. But that we don't. I think everybody can concur that COVID, unfortunately, and everything that went on during that period, not to say the C word, was more divisive than unfortunately it was in bringing people together. So don't let this be one more thing, and the growth in the community and all the things going on be another divisive thing that doesn't help long term. Well, they say you can go fast if you're by yourself, but if you want to go far, you have to go together. And I think that's hopefully the goal of everybody is to be, doing well for a long time. So.
We've talked to.
See, I was right.
You've done this before.
A lot of coffee again. We've talked to a lot of people in the last 3 or 4 months and done a lot of public speaking to groups that, traditionally might be more opposition groups, as well as those who would be supporters. And to your point, we get some tough questions, we get challenged, but it's not an in-your-face negative, such as some of the divisive things we've seen. It's more expressing concerns. And, my experience, my wife and I moved here in 2005, and so we've made Marysville our adopted hometown because we love this area, we love the people. I have a lot of faith in the people of Marysville, and I do believe there is a mindset here of we're all in this together. And while there are concerns about growth and things of that nature, I think overall people understand it's better to be part of a growing, vibrant community than it is to be a part of a declining community. The town I grew up in, or I grew up on a farm, but the town closest to me actually has lost 6,000 or 7,000 people in population in the last 20 years. And
everybody's
I can tell
moving to Central Ohio.
It's a lot better here.
If you look at the numbers.
They're all moving here. Just kidding. But it's a lot better here. It's a lot more positive environment, and we're not seeing things taken away as you're seeing there. And so I've got faith in the people of Marysville that they're going to rally around this, and we're going to make this happen. So, because it's a great community. So that's just my personal 2 cents.
For sure. If we added all the cents up today, I think we've got lots of cents. So we'd be rich folks. No, we already are. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, encourage everybody to, we could.
Vote yes.
on May 2nd. Actually, early voting starts April 4th, so you can vote yes even earlier. But whatever you do, get out there, vote yes. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. If you've got questions, hit us up. We'll be glad to chat with you.
I'll link it up and have phone numbers or whatever you guys want to share.
Yep, so you can find all of this information and more on our website, mevsdcitizens.com. There's opportunities to volunteer, to get a yard sign, if you want to attend any of our events coming up, or just want to let us know if you support the levy, then go to that website. You can do it all right there.
Good deal. Well, thank you for what you guys are doing, caring about the community, whether or not you sit on one side or the other. Still valuable to have passionate people, like you said, that are wanting to move forward and together. So, like, subscribe, do all the things. Thanks for turning in. If there's anybody you think should be sitting on the other side for another conversation, I would love to know them and interview them and talk to them. So until next time, take care.